Hey everyone, today we're going to go ahead and make the baked ziti. The first thing you're going to want to do is get a pretty good sized pot, fill it about halfway with water, and you're going to want to put about a half a teaspoon or a couple swirls of salt in it. That's just going to help the water boil a little bit faster. I'm going to go ahead and put that on your stove and bring it to a boil. I like to put the cover on mine. It holds the heat and it does help it boil a little bit faster. So while that's boiling, we're going to go ahead and start cutting up our onions. The recipe calls for 1 medium onion. I happen to have small onions, so I'm probably going to cut both of them up. You want them to be pretty small pieces so that people aren't biting into a whole chunk of onion. First thing you're going to do is cut the ends off. And take the skin off. All of that will go right into your compost. I'm going to cut those right into small chunks. Go ahead and put that right into your skillet. You can always put a little bit of olive oil in your skillet. If you have something that tends to stick, non-stick pans, you wouldn't really need it as much. I have an enamel-coated cast iron skillet, so things don't tend to stick to that very much, so I'm not going to put any in today. All right. Whew. Remember, if your eyes do start burning or watering, you want to make sure you wipe them so that you don't cut your finger because you can't see from the tears. And you want to make sure you wash your hands because if you wipe them right after you cut the onion, it will definitely make them burn more. All right. One of the things that is not on the recipe that I do like to add to mine is garlic. So you can use fresh garlic, you can chop it up. I like to buy this already diced garlic, and I use about a teaspoon. I just throw it right in with my onions. And then you're going to open up your meat. You can use any kind of ground meat. You could use ground sausage, you could use ground beef, you could use ground turkey, you could use ground chicken, you could use ground venison, whatever you have. I prefer turkey meat, so we're going to go ahead and throw that right in my skillet, and we're going to turn the skillet on to a medium heat. And make sure that you're taking your spatula and chopping up that meat so it will fry up nicely. Now again, if you're using anything other than poultry, it's not pertinent. It's not super important that you cook it all the way. You could have a little pink When you're using turkey or chicken, you always want to make sure it's cooked thoroughly so there's no pink left in it. Alright. So at this time, if you purchased mozzarella cheese that was in a block, you're going to want to go ahead and grate that and set it down. You've got a few minutes while everything is cooking. This time I actually purchased already grated mozzarella cheese, so I don't have to do that. And also at this time, you're going to go ahead and take your baking dish, and you can use butter to grease it. You could use vegetable oil, you could use olive oil. Or you could go a little bit easier and use this Pam spray. And you're going to want to make sure that it get all the way around the sides. Cheese likes to stick to this, and this recipe has a lot of it. So just a nice coating so you can still see through it. You can set that back aside. I'm going to go ahead and stir up our turkey and onions and garlic. Let that really cook up good. I am going to add a little bit of olive oil to my water for my pasta so that my pasta doesn't stick together. You're going to add about 2 tablespoons. This is the time I like to clean up. If you're waiting, you know, your water's not boiling, your skillet's just starting to cook, you can start cleaning up your onions, putting your knife and your cutting board away. If you clean as you go, at the very end, there won't be a huge amount to clean up. Also, we're going to preheat our oven, 350 degrees. So that's preheating now as well. Make sure you're taking your spatula out and just breaking up the big clumps of meat. It'll help cook it faster, and it also helps distribute more evenly when you're going to put it in the casserole, the layering process. My onions are starting to look a little bit less white, a little bit more clear, and my turkey is also starting to look a little more white. You'll probably notice less pink if you're using beef or venison. You'll start seeing it all turns brown. If you're using beef that has a high percentage of fat, you're going to want to drain off the fat before you add the sauce into it. And we're not going to add all the sauce, but you are going to want to drain off some of that fat. So probably anything like 92% or lower, you're going to want to drain some of that fat off. If you've got 90% or 92% or 95%, you'll notice there's not a whole lot left in the pan, so there's not going to be a need to drain that off. With poultry, there really isn't any fat, so there is no need whatsoever to drain it off. All right, now that all of my turkey is cooked up, completely clear, onions, we're going to go ahead and put in the spaghetti sauce. It calls for 2 26-ounce jars of spaghetti sauce. They can be cans, any kind of flavored spaghetti sauce. I actually have one that's for cheese, and then I have one that is roasted garlic and herb. It's just going to add more flavoring. And I like to put one in and stir and then put the other one in. Just helps with the splattering. Things just stir a little bit more smoothly, I feel. There's one. And put it right in. In order to simmer, once your sauce is in and stirred, you're going to move your oven or your stovetop down to a lower setting. I like to go, if it's numbered like 1 or 2, so it's just above low. And mix it right up. And we're just going to let that simmer. I have gone ahead and moved my sauce to a back burner that cooks a little bit lower and moved my pasta to the front just to try and speed the process up a little bit. My water is almost boiling. So at this time you can just go ahead and make sure you have all the rest of your ingredients together to go ahead and start layering. We have our provolone cheese. You can buy it shredded already, or you can buy sliced and then just use that for a layer. I have our mozzarella cheese. I have our sour cream. We have our sauce that we just made. And then Parmesan cheese is just going to be sprinkled on the top right before we bake it. You could also set yourself up. I'm going to pull my strainer out and put it in my sink so that once my pasta is done, I'll be ready to go. So I've got my strainer. I'm going to set it right over here in the sink. So I just have oven's preheated. I just have a 1 pound box of ziti. You can use really any kind of tubular pasta, so the stuff that looks like tube. Rigatoni you could use. Really, you could use any kind of layering, any kind of pasta to do the layering. All right, well, my water is now boiling. I'm gonna go ahead and dump my whole box of pasta right in. And immediately I'm gonna go ahead and get a spoon and stir it, just so that the pasta doesn't stick to the bottom while it's cooking. It also gives the chance for the oil to get all over it, because you'll notice that the oil all sticks together when you put it in the water, because oil and water don't mix. So it takes about 10 minutes for the pasta to get completely cooked to the texture that I like it. If you like it a little bit softer, you can go a little bit longer. It's easiest to take a piece of pasta out and cut it in half. If you see a little white ring in it, same thing with long spaghetti. If you break it and you see a white dot in the middle, it typically means that the pasta is not cooked yet. So we'll see. 10 minutes. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my stove off, and using my pot holders, I'm gonna drain the pasta. You wanna make sure when you put the pasta into the strainer that you're dumping it away from you so the steam is not coming towards your face. So just dump that right in there. I like to give my strainer a little bit of a shake. Just shake it like this. It just gets all the excess water off. And we're gonna go ahead and start the layering. The first step is to put about half of your pasta in the bottom of your casserole. So it's not an exact science. You just want to look at it, make sure you have about half of it. Basically, it should make a good layer without too many holes in the bottom of your casserole. The next step you're going to do is, I'm actually just going to move my sauce a little bit closer. However, the next step we are going to do is the provolone cheese. So if you have shredded provolone cheese, you can go ahead and sprinkle it right over. You're going to want to make sure it's even. It says about 6 ounces. I find it's a lot easier to buy sliced provolone and then just place the slices right over the pasta. They can be touching. It's cheese. Cheese melts. That's what we're going to do once we get it all built. It usually takes about 6 slices. Provolone cheese is right on. The next step is your sour cream, and you're going to use about 1.5 cups. So if you get these 16-ounce containers, it's going to be about 3/4 of one. Measure it right into your measuring cup. This one's already been opened, so I'm going to go ahead and start with this. I always make sure I stir my sour cream, and then the easiest way I have found to spread it is to take a spoon, take some big blobs, and place it right on the provolone cheese. Got my second one, and one big blob there. And then you're going to take a rubber spatula or spoon and very gently press down and spread it. And you just want it to kind of go all over, be one nice layer over your cheese and over your pasta. Kind of like frosting a cake, honestly. show you that is what ours looks like. The next layer is half of your sauce mixture. So again, it's not really a measure. You're just gonna wanna make sure you scoop it. You can use a ladle or a spoon. I like to do the blobbing thing again, where you just take big spoonfuls of it and place it, and then you can use the back of your spoon to spread it out. You wanna make sure you only use half of it, or else you won't have enough of your mixture to go on the next layer. So, there's one half of the casserole. And just frying it and make sure you're using just about half. One nice layer. Right there. That's the whole layer. Then the next step is the remaining parts of your pasta. You're going to notice that your pasta has chilled a little bit, so it tends to stick together a little bit. So it's going to be hot too. So make sure you're just using your hand to break it up as you're making that next level or layer, sorry. And just make sure we're making sure we have a little bit of pasta everywhere. There. And the next step is your mozzarella cheese. It calls for about 5 ounces, like we had said before. I brought pre-shredded, so all I'm gonna do is make sure that I have a nice thin layer over the whole casserole. And just sprinkle it right over. Your pasta is still really hot, so you'll probably notice that the cheese starts to melt right away. Not a big deal. There we go, nice thin layer. And then you're gonna put the remainder of your sauce on. Right over the whole thing. I'm just pulling it back a little bit. My handle has a hole in it. I don't want it to overflow in the oven. All right, and that is the remainder of my sauce. And the last step is your Parmesan cheese. So you can buy a block of Parmesan cheese and grate it up, or you can just buy this already grated Parmesan cheese. It calls for 2 tablespoons. So basically that's just a light sprinkle over the whole thing. Just a nice light sprinkle. And then we're gonna go ahead and put that in the oven, and it bakes for about 30 minutes. Now the good thing with it is we've already cooked our pasta, we've already cooked our meat, we've already cooked our sauce and our onions. So basically the only thing we're waiting for is our cheese to melt. So about 30 minutes is all it should take. All right. Make sure you step back when you open up the oven. Set it in. Set your timer for 30 minutes. All right, so it's 30 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and put my oven mitts on and take this casserole out. Remember when you open the oven to step back so the heat can rise out before you step down to pull it out. And this is our finished product. I like to serve it with a salad and garlic bread. How do you like yours?